The observation deck of the merchant vessel Gentle Prosperity hummed with its usual peaceful rhythm. Tessa Wright stood at the viewing port, her auburn hair tied back as she catalogued the latest shipment of medical supplies bound for the outer colonies. At 28, she had spent 6 years working trade routes through Confederation space, and every journey had been unremarkable, safe, predictable. That was about to change forever. Her communication panel chirped softly. Captain Orrin Halverson's weathered face appeared on the screen, his gray beard neatly trimmed as always. "Tessa, we're picking up something unusual on long-range sensors. Can you come to the bridge?" She made her way through the corridors, nodding to crew members as she passed. The Gentle Prosperity was a civilian transport, crewed by 23 people who had chosen the peaceful life of trade over the excitement of exploration or military service. They carried grain, textiles, medicines, and building materials between the 17 worlds of the Confederation. Nothing dangerous, nothing exciting. The bridge was small but efficient. Orrin sat in the captain's chair while his daughter, Nicole Halverson, monitored the navigation systems. At 24, Nicole was the youngest certified pilot in the fleet, and she took pride in her precise calculations. "What have we got?" Tessa asked, moving to stand beside Orrin's chair. "Unknown contact," Nicole said, her fingers dancing across her console. "It appeared on sensors about 10 minutes ago. Big ship moving fast, not following any registered flight path." Tessa studied the display. The vessel was enormous, at least 4 times the size of their merchant ship. Its trajectory would bring it across their path within the hour. "Have we tried hailing them?" 17 times, Orrin replied. No response. Not even an automated acknowledgement. The Confederation had strict protocols for space travel. Every ship announced itself. Every captain responded to hails. In 300 years of peaceful expansion, the rules had become second nature to every species in the Alliance. Could it be a malfunction? Tessa suggested. Maybe their communications array is damaged. Possible, Orrin admitted, but his expression said he didn't believe it. But look at the energy readings. That ship is running hot, really hot. Those power levels are off the charts. Nicole pulled up more detailed scans. The hull is covered in impact marks. Sections have been patched and repaired. Some of the armor plating looks melted. Captain, that ship has been through combat. A cold feeling settled in Tessa's stomach. Combat. The word felt ancient, inappropriate. The Confederation had not seen real warfare in living memory. Disputes were settled through negotiation. Disagreements went to arbitration councils. Violence was something from history books, from the primitive days before civilization had learned better ways. Alert the other ships in the area, Orrin ordered, and send a priority message to Confederation Central. Let them know we have an unknown vessel that's not responding to standard protocols. The bridge fell silent as they watched the massive ship approach. It moved with purpose, its trajectory unwavering. There was something predatory about it, something that made Tessa's instincts scream warnings her rational mind couldn't quite process. Captain, they're changing course, Nicole said suddenly. They're heading directly toward us. Orrin straightened in his chair. Full stop. Power down everything except life support and communications. Show them we're no threat. The Gentle Prosperity drifted to a halt, its engines falling silent. They waited. Minutes stretched like hours. The unknown vessel continued its approach until it filled their view screen, a massive construct of dark metal and brutal angles. Up close, the damage was even more apparent. The hull was scarred with weapon impacts, whole sections replaced with mismatched plating. This was a ship that had survived hell itself. Captain, Nicole whispered, they're locking weapons on us. Tessa's heart began to pound. Weapons lock, another phrase from ancient history, from before the Confederation had learned the ways of peace. Keep transmitting our peaceful intentions, Orrin said, though his voice shook slightly. Tell them we're a civilian transport. No weapons, no military capability. Tell them we mean no harm. The view screen suddenly blazed with light. A face appeared and everyone on the bridge froze. The woman staring back at them was unlike any species Tessa had ever seen. Her skin was pale, marked with old scars that ran across her cheek and forehead. Her hair was cropped short, practical rather than decorative, but it was her eyes that struck Tessa most. They were positioned forward like a predator's eyes, and they held a hardness that spoke of things witnessed and survived that should have broken any rational being. Unidentified vessel, the woman said. her voice carrying through the bridge speakers with mechanical precision. "This is Commander Rhea Blackwood of the Terran Defense Force ship Retribution. You have entered an active combat zone. State your designation and purpose immediately." Orin found his voice, though it took visible effort. "This is Captain Orin Halverson of the Confederation merchant vessel Gentle Prosperity. We're a civilian transport carrying medical supplies to the Outer Rim colonies. We mean you no harm. We were not aware this was a combat zone." Silence. The woman called Rhea Blackwood studied them with those hard predator's eyes. Behind her, Tessa could see other humans moving with quick efficiency, their uniforms dark and practical, their movements speaking of discipline and readiness. "Confederation?" Rhea finally said. "Never heard of it. What species are you?" "We're Virelians," Orin replied, confusion evident in his voice. "We're part of the Confederation Alliance. 17 worlds dedicated to peaceful trade and mutual cooperation." "Who are you? Where do you come from?" Something flickered across Rhea's scarred face. "We're human. We come from Earth, or what used to be Earth. And we're here because we're hunting something that wants to kill everything in its path, including you." Before anyone could respond, alarms began screaming throughout the Gentle Prosperity. Nicole's hands flew across her console. "Captain, multiple contacts emerging from hyperspace. 40 vessels. They're not Confederation designs. They're not any design I recognize." Tessa moved to look at the sensor readings and felt her blood turn to ice. The ships appearing around them were organic, twisted things that looked like they had been grown rather than built. They pulsed with a sickly bioluminescence, and even through the cold metal and vacuum of space, they felt wrong somehow. "Those are Ravagers." Rhea's voice cut through the panic. "You need to run, now. Get your ship as far from here as possible." "But we're civilians," Orin protested. "Surely we can negotiate. There must be some misunderstanding." Rhea's laugh was harsh and without humor. "You can't negotiate with Ravagers, Captain. They don't talk. They don't trade. They consume. If you stay here, you die. It's that simple." The organic ships began moving, spreading out in a pattern that was beautiful in its terrible efficiency. They were surrounding the area, cutting off escape routes with practiced coordination. "We're detecting energy buildups in those vessels," Nicole reported, her voice climbing toward panic. "They're charging weapons." Rhea leaned forward, her scarred face filling the screen. "Listen to me very carefully. You have maybe 60 seconds before they're in firing range. Either you start running or I'm going to leave you behind. I've got a mission to complete, and I can't protect civilians who won't protect themselves." Orin looked at Tessa, then at his daughter. The peaceful certainty that had defined their entire existence was crumbling in real time. Everything they believed about the universe, about civilization, about the fundamental nature of intelligent life, was being challenged by the existence of these Ravagers, these things that consumed rather than cooperated. "Captain Blackwood," Tessa found herself saying, her voice surprisingly steady. "What are they? Why do they attack?" Rhea's expression softened slightly, and for just a moment, Tessa saw something beneath the hard exterior. Grief. Old and deep. Because that's what they do. Because they're a species that evolved to consume other life. Because the universe isn't as safe or as civilized as you think it is. Now move your ship or watch everyone aboard die. Orin made his decision. "Nicole, full power to engines. Get us out of here." The Gentle Prosperity surged forward, its civilian drives pushing to maximum as it tried to escape the closing trap. Behind them, the Retribution wheeled about with predatory grace, its weapons coming online with a sound like thunder. And then the battle began, and the crew of the Gentle Prosperity saw warfare for the first time, and understood that peace was not a natural state of the universe, but a fragile construction that could shatter in an instant when it met something that had never learned the concept. The Gentle Prosperity shuddered as weapons fire blazed past its hull. Tessa gripped the edge of a console to keep her balance as Nicole pushed the ship to speeds it was never designed to handle. Through the view screen, she watched something that belonged in nightmares, not reality. The Retribution had opened fire on the Ravager vessels with devastating precision. Brilliant lances of energy cut through space, striking the organic ships with surgical accuracy. Each hit caused the Ravager vessels to writhe and convulse, their bioluminescent surfaces flickering with pain. But the Ravagers were not retreating. They swarmed forward like insects, returning fire with weapons that seemed to tear at reality itself. Green bolts of corrupted energy splashed against the Retribution's shields, causing the massive warship to rock under the assault. "They're coordinating their attacks," Nicole said, her voice tight with fear. "They're working together like a hive mind." Tessa watched in horrible fascination as the battle unfolded. The Retribution moved with a grace that seemed impossible for something so large. It rolled, dove, and spun through space, always keeping its weapons trained on new targets. Human precision against alien ferocity. A Ravager vessel broke from the main group and surged toward the gentle Prosperity. Its form was nightmarish up close, a twisted amalgamation of chitin and exposed organs, studded with bioweapons that pulsed with hunger. "It's targeting us," Nicole shouted. "Shields are no good against that kind of firepower." The Ravager's weapons began to glow with sickly green light. Tessa felt time slow down. This was death approaching. This was the end of everything she knew. Then the Retribution was there, appearing between them and the Ravager like an avenging angel. Its ventral guns opened up at point-blank range, and the organic vessel simply came apart, torn into chunks that tumbled through space-trailing biomatter and fluids. "All civilian vessels. This is Commander Blackwood." Rhea's voice crackled over every frequency. "Form up behind the Retribution. Stay in our shadow and keep moving. We'll clear a path." 3 other ships appeared on sensors, all civilian transports like the gentle Prosperity. They had been caught in the same trap. Now they scrambled to follow the human warship as it carved a bloody path through the Ravager swarm. Oren worked his controls, bringing their ship into formation. "Follow her lead. Trust her?" Trust. Such a simple word. The Confederation was built on trust, on the belief that all intelligent beings could communicate, could find common ground. But as Tessa watched the Ravagers attack with mindless hunger, she realized that trust required both parties to value something beyond immediate consumption. The battle raged for 20 minutes that felt like hours. The Retribution's weapons never ceased firing. Its shields took hit after hit, flickering under the sustained assault but never failing. The human ship fought with an efficiency that was terrifying in its perfection. Every movement had purpose. Every shot found its mark. This was not a vessel that occasionally went to war. This was a machine designed for nothing else. Finally, the last Ravager vessel fell, cut in half by a sustained barrage from the Retribution's main guns. The organic ship died screaming, a sound that came through space in ways that violated everything Tessa understood about physics. The silence that followed was deafening. "Status report," Oren demanded, his hands shaking as he checked the ship's systems. "Hull integrity at 96%, Nicole replied. "Minor damage from debris impact. No casualties. Captain, we got lucky. If that human ship hadn't been here, we'd all be dead." Tessa looked at the debris field that filled their view screen. The remains of perhaps 40 Ravager vessels drifted in slowly expanding clouds. The Retribution hung in the center of the destruction, its shield still active, its weapons still hot and ready. "All civilian ships, this is Blackwood." The commander's voice came through again. "You need to leave this sector immediately. More Ravagers will come to investigate. They always do." Oren keyed his microphone. "Commander Blackwood, thank you. You saved our lives. Is there anything we can do to assist you?" A pause. Then Rhea's face appeared on the screen again. Up close, Tessa could see the exhaustion etched into every line of her features. This woman lived with a burden that would crush most beings. "You can spread the word," Rhea said. "Tell your Confederation that the galaxy isn't empty. Tell them that humanity has been fighting these things for generations. Tell them that if they want to survive, they need to learn how to fight because peace only works when everyone agrees to it. We'll report everything we've seen," Oren promised. "But Commander, where do you come from? How long have you been fighting these Ravagers?" Rhea's expression hardened. "Too long. Earth fell to them 78 years ago. 3 billion people died in the first wave. We've been running and fighting ever since, trying to slow them down, trying to find worlds they haven't corrupted yet so we can warn the inhabitants. We've lost 17 colonies. We've watched entire civilizations fall. The Retribution is one of the last warships in the Terran fleet." The weight of those words settled over the bridge like a shroud. 78 years. 3 billion dead. 17 colonies lost. That's impossible, Nicole whispered. No species could sustain conflict for that long. The psychological damage alone would destroy any society. "You learn to adapt," Rhea said flatly, "or you die. Those are the only choices the Ravagers leave you. Every human alive today was born into war. We don't know anything else." Tessa felt something shift inside her. She had lived her entire life believing the universe operated on certain principles: reason, communication, mutual benefit. But standing here in the aftermath of battle, looking at this scarred human commander, she understood that the universe was larger and more terrible than she had ever imagined. "Commander Blackwood," she said, stepping forward. "I'm Tessa Wright, cargo specialist. If there's a threat like this in the galaxy, the Confederation needs to know. Would you be willing to speak with our leadership?" Rhea studied her for a long moment. "I've tried that before with other civilizations. Do you know what usually happens? They don't believe me. They think we're the aggressors. They think surely there must be some way to negotiate with the Ravagers. By the time they realize the truth, it's too late." "We'll believe you," Tessa said, though she wasn't entirely sure that was true. "Please, give us the chance to prepare." Something flickered in Rhea's eyes. Hope, maybe, or just exhaustion that wanted to believe someone else might share the burden. "Fine, but we do this my way. Your leaders come to me. I'm not walking into some council chamber where I can be detained or studied. The Retribution will hold position at these coordinates for 72 hours. After that, we continue our mission." She transmitted the coordinates and the transmission ended. The Gentle Prosperity and the other civilian vessels were left alone with the debris and the terrible knowledge that everything they believed about the universe had been wrong. Oren began issuing orders, coordinating with the other ships, preparing reports for Confederation Central, but Tessa stood at the view screen, staring at the Retribution. The human warship hung in space like a monument to survival, its scarred hull testament to battles fought and won against impossible odds. She thought about Rhea Blackwood and her crew. She thought about a species that had been fighting for nearly 80 years, that had lost their homeworld and billions of their people, that had been forged in fires no Confederation species had ever known. And she wondered what would happen when two such different civilizations truly met, when the Confederation's philosophy of peace through understanding collided with humanity's hard-won knowledge that sometimes survival required violence. The answer, she suspected, would change everything. The Confederation Council Chamber had never seen such tension. Representatives from all 17 member worlds gathered in the Grand Amphitheater, their various forms creating a tapestry of peaceful diversity. The Varillians like Oren and Tessa, the crystalline lumini who communicated through pulses of colored light, the massive Krovar whose thick hides protected them from harsh environments, the telepathic Mindari who rarely needed words at all. All of them watched the holographic displays with varying degrees of shock and disbelief. Tessa stood before them, having been called to give testimony about what she had witnessed. Beside her, Oren corroborated every detail. The recordings from the Gentle Prosperity played on loop, showing the Ravager attack, showing the human warship's devastating response, showing the aftermath. "This is unprecedented," Senior Counselor Vec said, his crystalline form refracting the chamber's light into rainbow patterns. "In 300 years of Confederation history, we have encountered no species that operates on such principles. These humans claim to have been at war for 8 decades. That's correct, Counselor," Tessa replied. Commander Blackwood was clear about their history. The Ravagers destroyed Earth 78 years ago. Humanity has been fighting ever since. "Impossible," growled Counselor Dren, a massive Krovar whose species prided itself on strength. "No civilization could sustain total warfare for that duration. The social collapse alone would be catastrophic." "Yet the evidence is before us," interjected Counselor Mira of the Mindari. Her mental voice touched every mind in the chamber gently. "The recordings are authentic. The human vessel displays damage consistent with sustained combat operations, and these Ravager organisms represent a threat unlike anything in our historical records." A younger representative stood. Her name was Nia Cortez, one of only 3 humans in Confederation space. She had been part of an earlier colony mission, one that had never encountered the Ravagers. "Counselors, if I may speak, I left Earth 60 years ago as part of the first wave of human exploration. At that time, my people were peaceful. We sought new worlds to settle, new species to learn from. If what Commander Blackwood says is true, then everything changed after I left. My entire civilization was transformed by this war." The chamber fell silent. The weight of that statement hung heavy in the air. "The question before us," Vec said finally, "is whether we engage with these humans and investigate their claims about the Ravagers, or whether we maintain our distance and observe from afar. Observe? Tessa couldn't keep the incredulity from her voice. Counselor, with respect, we barely survived one encounter with the Ravagers. If they're spreading through the galaxy as Commander Blackwood suggests, observation won't protect us. Captain Wright raises a valid concern, Mira said. The Ravagers attacked civilian vessels without provocation. They showed no interest in communication. This behavior is fundamentally incompatible with Confederation principles, which is precisely why we must be cautious, argued Counselor Thorne of the Diplomatic Corps. We've built our alliance on the principle that all conflicts can be resolved through understanding. If we abandon that principle at the first sign of difficulty, what does that say about us? It says we're capable of recognizing when our principles don't apply, Oren interjected. Counselors, I've commanded civilian vessels for 30 years. I've negotiated with pirates, mediated disputes between colonies, and resolved countless conflicts through dialogue. But the Ravagers aren't pirates or angry colonists. They're a species that exists to consume. You can't negotiate with hunger itself. The debate continued for hours. Some counselors argued for immediate military preparation. Others insisted on attempting diplomatic contact with the Ravagers first. Still others suggested that the humans themselves might be the real threat, using the Ravager story as a cover for their own aggressive expansion. Finally, Vec called for a vote. The council would send a delegation to meet Commander Blackwood. They would verify her claims. They would gather more information. Only then would they decide on a course of action. Tessa was chosen to lead the delegation, along with Nia Cortez, Counselor Mira, and a military advisor named Commander Brock Trevino, a grizzled Virelian who had studied ancient warfare as a historical curiosity. 3 days later, their diplomatic vessel approached the coordinates Rhea had provided. The Retribution hung in space exactly where promised, its weapons cold but its shields at full strength. The human warship never let its guard down. Retribution, this is the Confederation vessel Harmony's voice. Tessa transmitted, we're here as requested. Permission to dock? Harmony's voice, this is Retribution, came a new voice, younger than Rhea's. Permission granted. Follow the nav beacon to Docking Bay 3. Commander Blackwood will meet you there. The diplomatic ship maneuvered carefully into the massive warship's docking bay. As they landed, Tessa noticed the organized chaos surrounding them. Human crew members moved with practiced efficiency, maintaining equipment, running diagnostics, preparing for the next engagement. Nobody wasted movement. Nobody wasted time. The airlock cycled and they stepped into the Retribution. Rhea Blackwood waited with a small group of officers. Up close, Tessa could see more details she had missed over the video transmission. The commander's uniform was worn but immaculately maintained. Her sidearm hung ready on her hip. Her eyes tracked every movement with predatory awareness. Welcome aboard, Rhea said, her voice carefully neutral. I'm surprised your council actually sent anyone. Nia Cortez stepped forward. Commander Blackwood, I'm Nia Cortez. I left Earth 60 years ago on the colony ship Pioneer. Is it true? Did Earth really fall? Something in Rhea's expression cracked just for a moment. You're from the first wave. The lost generation. We found remnants of the Pioneer 7 years ago. The colony you were heading toward had been overrun by Ravagers decades earlier. You're lucky you never made it. Nia's face went pale. Tessa reached out to steady her fellow human, understanding that this woman had just learned her mission had failed before it even began, that the home she had been trying to create had died long ago. I'm sorry, Rhea continued, but yeah, it's true. Earth fell in 2087. The Ravagers hit us hard and fast. 3 billion dead in the first month. The survivors evacuated to Mars and the outer colonies. We've been fighting ever since. Show us, Mira said, her telepathic voice gentle but firm. Show us everything. We need to understand what we're facing. Rhea nodded. Follow me. But I'm warning you, this won't be easy to see. She led them through the ship's corridors. Along the way, they passed memorial walls covered with names, thousands upon thousands of names, fallen crew members from countless engagements. We don't forget anyone, Rhea said quietly. Every person who died fighting the Ravagers deserves to be remembered. They reached the briefing room. What followed was 3 hours of nightmare made real. Rhea and her officers presented evidence, recordings, data from 78 years of warfare. They showed worlds consumed. They showed human colonies fighting desperate last stands. They showed the evolution of Ravager, tactics and the corresponding human adaptations. They showed the biological analysis that proved the Ravagers were incapable of communication as the Confederation understood it. The creatures operated on pure instinct, driven by hunger and reproduction cycles that required consuming other intelligent species. Commander Trevino studied the tactical data with professional intensity. Your combat doctrine is remarkable. The coordination, the efficiency, you've weaponized survival itself. We had no choice, said Lieutenant Cade Foster, one of Rhea's tactical officers. He was younger than his commander, maybe 30, but his eyes held the same hard awareness. The Ravagers forced us to evolve or die. We chose evolution. At what cost? Mira asked gently, her mental touch brushing against the humans' minds. What she felt there made her recoil slightly. These people carried trauma that would destroy most Confederation species, yet they functioned with clarity and purpose. At tremendous cost, Rhea admitted. We've lost most of our population. Our society exists solely to support the war effort. Children are educated in survival tactics alongside traditional subjects. Every adult serves in some capacity. We don't have artists anymore, or philosophers, or anyone who creates beauty just for the sake of it. We have soldiers, engineers, medics, and workers. That's all the Ravagers left us. Tessa felt tears running down her face. The sheer scope of what humanity had endured, what it had sacrificed, was overwhelming. Why keep fighting? She asked. Why not flee deeper into space away from the Ravagers? Rhea's laugh was bitter. We tried that. The Ravagers are faster than us. They spread through hyperspace using biological vessels that can travel farther and faster than any ship we've built. Running only delays the inevitable. So we fight. We slow them down. We try to warn other civilizations. We buy time for someone, anyone, to find a permanent solution. You're trying to save civilizations you've never met, Nia said softly. Species you've never known. Why? Because someone has to, Rhea replied simply. Because if we don't, the entire galaxy falls. Because maybe, just maybe, if we fight hard enough and long enough, we'll find a way to stop them permanently. The briefing room fell silent. The weight of humanity's sacrifice hung in the air like a physical presence. Finally, Mira spoke. Commander Blackwood, what do you need from the Confederation? Rhea looked surprised. You believe me? I've touched your mind, Mira replied. I've felt your truth. You carry burdens that would shatter our people, yet you remain functional, focused, determined. Whatever else you are, you're not liars. So I ask again, what do you need? Rhea exchanged glances with her officers. For the first time since the delegation had arrived, hope appeared in her expression. Intelligence, she said. Share your star charts. Help us map Ravager movements. If we know where they're going, we can warn civilizations in their path. Done, Tessa said immediately, before anyone else could object. What else? Resources. The Retribution can manufacture most of what we need, but raw materials are scarce. If you can provide refined metals, medical supplies, anything that keeps us operational longer. We can arrange that, Commander Trevino said, his tactical mind already working through logistics. And one more thing, Rhea continued, her voice dropping. When the Ravagers come to Confederation space, and they will come, don't try to negotiate with them. Don't try to understand them. Just fight with everything you have. Fight like your existence depends on it, because it does. The delegation returned to Confederation space carrying recordings, data, and the knowledge that the universe was far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. The council chambers erupted in debate. Some members still refused to believe. Others argued for immediate military buildup. The Confederation had never been so divided. But slowly, grudgingly, the alliance began to change. Civilian ships started carrying better defensive systems. Military vessels that had gathered dust for centuries were brought out of mothballs and retrofitted. Training programs incorporated human combat doctrines. And in the space between the Confederation and the approaching Ravager swarm, the Retribution continued its lonely patrol, buying time with human blood for civilizations that didn't fully understand what was being sacrificed on their behalf. Tessa Wright watched it all unfold and understood that this was just the beginning. The age of easy peace was ending. The age of survival through strength was beginning. And when the two philosophies finally collided in earnest, the galaxy would never be the same again.